Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hold on. Here's one you will know because you've been to a Blazers game. Where is he at?
Soldier boy, tell you.
That's what they play when Nurkic scores.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I've never noticed that before.
You.
Yep.
My knowledge of hip hop and rap music is completely limited to Check Your Head and specifically Professor Booty, and that's pretty much where it begins and ends.
All right.
Well,
hey, you know the wheelhouse.
I love that song so much. Professor, what's another word for pirate treasure? Well, I'd say booty. Booty. And that is as much hip hop as you're going to get out of me. Hey, are you ready to roll?
No, we're rolling.
Okay, good.
That better be the intro.
Of course it will be. Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, here as always with Danny Marang, who just got me to do my impersonation of the Beastie Boys and Professor Booty, which is one of my favorite songs. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do that, Dan.
Oh, God, that was great. And all thanks to the rap board soundboard. God, the internet just keeps giving and giving.
Okay, you need to just step away from that because I can't have you like interspersing this entire conversation with random exclamations from your new toy.
You don't want any Soldier Boy little you coming in?
It's enough to just make it through the episode, Dan. Hey, before we go into the Blazers, how's your week been?
Oh.
Are you adjusting to the Fast and Furious pace of having to watch all of the Blazer games sequestered with your other two outsiders?
Yeah, no, that's fun. Like, they literally lock us in a closet with 18.
I can't wait till game 75 and you guys are all just losing it.
I mean, you've watched the game with me. You know how loud and obnoxious I can be, which is even worse than the podcast. And poor Shane and Joe. Shane, I think, was about ready to burst a blood vessel last game. So, yeah, no, we're going to look all grizzled, too, because we've got something coming up for No Shave November. We're actually doing some things for the charity. So we'll actually look like we've been locked in a cave here for the next.
Did you find time to do anything else fun? I mean, you're coming off your birthday week. Did you have anything good to follow it up with?
Yeah, we went out to dinner. I checked out Brazil Grill with a family and a girlfriend, and that was actually went really well. So I'm pretty stoked about that. How about you?
Well, I went in today to get my nails done, and the lady looked at my nails and said, "What is the matter with you?" And I said, "The Blazers played yesterday," and I was completely fine. And then yesterday, I just like chewed off all of my nails during that game against Miami.
Perfect.
She was like, "You should have come in earlier," and I'm like, "I know." And then she said, "What were you doing?" And I said, "I was watching a Blazer game." And she goes, "Oh, the Blazers never win." And I was like, I think it could be a little more generous than that.
She's after my own heart.
But I tell you, they just lost 2 out of the last 3, and it feels like so long ago last week when we were so excited.
Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead.
So much has happened since then. But what I want to start with, okay, so last week the Blazers were 3-0. They are now 3-2. No. Yes. Anyway, is it really like it was just fool's gold? Are there everything that we saw in the preseason, is that all gone and we're just back to the same team we've seen for the last couple years? Or has there really been a change and we just have had a couple of games where there was some regression and they haven't completely put it all together yet?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Let's get this one out of the way first, because the Wizards game was inexcusable. That's the conclusion I'm reaching right now after watching the Wizards play the last couple nights.
Okay, so why did they lose that game?
I have no idea. I get that Brad Beal and John Wall are matchup problems for Dame and CJ, but
and there's always a Morris brother.
Yeah, and people want to get off on Stotts or Nurkic, not switching. That's a Dame and Nurkic thing that they needed to figure out. The fact they went back to it over and over and over again was kind of ridiculous. I get why Stotts stuck with Nurkic on the offensive end because they didn't have an answer for him. So yeah.
I mean, they didn't have a big center. So was the idea we'll just play our big bully center and he'll take care of it? Because that, why didn't we go small? They go small. Excuse me. I am not on the team. I am making no decisions for that team.
they tried to go small and it was kind of ineffective. That game was just Kelly Oubre kind of getting off. It was just an ugly game from a lot of points, and it shouldn't have been that. I get that team has talent, but I don't think people really realize how just toxic that entire Wizards roster is right now. They're like a day away from having we're probably going to get reports in the morning that there's a players only meeting tonight.
Do you think? I don't think the Wizards would have a players only meeting. They can barely stand to be on the court together. Where are they going to choose to all be together in a meeting?
If you look at John Wall, you can be like, that man hates every one of his teammates. It manifests itself on the floor, and yet Portland still couldn't find a way to get that game done.
Okay, I felt like
more willing to excuse.
I felt like during that game, Washington spent a whole lot of time on the ground, and because I kept thinking, I hope it is cold and miserable down there, because they fell down so much. Did you notice any of that? Was I just being particularly sensitive?
No, there were a couple of those that were really bad. I can't remember. Was it Wall or Beal that drew a charge foul? It was nowhere near anything. I think it was on Curry, and I was like, what the hell are they buying?
Yeah, I mean, Curry knocking over John Wall is just like a wall right now. I mean, he's like a cinder block wall. There's like a brick wall, and then there's like a cinder block wall, and he's like a cinder block right now. And Seth Curry is not a big guy, and he was not charging.
No, and that was like the least of my concerns really in that game. But just overall, the game was just ugly, right? Everything about that game was just why is Portland struggling? Why is Washington still in this game? Why? I had more questions than I had answers during the game and after the game. I was just like, what is this monstrosity?
Well, I had it written in my outline to ask you, why did they lose that game? And it sounds like you really don't know. There wasn't anything that you could have. There's not one thing to pinpoint. No,
and then you've got Morris pulling on Curry's shorts. We even talked about that, and I'm so sick of the Morris twins. I really am. I'm going full on. Get off my lawn with those two guys.
Don't you? How would you feel if they were on your team?
I'd hate them. I hate.
Really?
Yeah, no. There's a difference between being just a complete jerk, and I put the Morris twins right up there with Draymond. I don't want to be a part of it. Throw back to Draymond Green, and I know people are like, oh my God, I take Draymond right now. Yeah, I get it, talent-wise, blah, 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 but I'm just talking about the mentality. Remember when Draymond, when he was kicking people in the nuts left, right, and center? And how it was a natural movement. What do you expect me to do? It's all real. That's how I play. He hasn't done it since he got his ass in trouble.
That's because he strengthened his core. I feel like he did a lot of Pilates to get to pull all of the control back into his core, which was causing him to kick out so much.
Yeah, that game I just wanted to just burn in a fire. I mean, the Blazers getting that much production again from their bench. Dame and CJ obviously had really bad nights, and they were still in it. I don't know, man. It was just a crappy game up and down. I can't pinpoint one single thing why. I mean, you could just go with, Dame and CJ had bad nights, but it was...
Right. I mean, CJ had an atrocious shooting night. So maybe this would be a good time to ask if you think there's something up with CJ, or is he just having one of his slumps? Because he does this.
Yeah,
it's usually a little bit later in the season, but it happens.
Yeah, he's had like 3 of these in his career. Right now, he's shooting better from 3 than he is from the field. Shooting 40% from 3 and 38% from the field right now.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and I've watched the tape. I've watched just him. He's getting to his spots. He's just not hitting shots. He's making a conscious decision to get more towards the rim. The free throws really aren't there yet, but he is going towards, well, with the exception of Hassan Whiteside, because he saw Hassan Whiteside, he just turned right around. But then again, with the way that was going in the first half, it's not exactly surprising. But yeah,
he's driving along the baseline a lot to get to the rim, as opposed to going straight at it like Damian does.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's more, I think, about where he's getting the ball.
Okay. Yeah, because he's just getting it over there on the 3, and then he curls in.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of his action off ball is a lot of baseline cuts, so he ends up getting the ball in the corner quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
There was like one series of plays in particular where he was dribbling with the ball on the baseline, and he got Whiteside to bite, and then he bailed out on the shot and kept his dribble alive, and then got Whiteside to bite again and wouldn't go up again. I'm like, just get to your spot and take the damn shot. So I don't know if he's in his own head right now or what. Like, it's 5 games, so I'm not like, oh, CJ needs to figure this out. But I mean, he needs to kind of get this going. Portland can't waste any more of these ridiculous nights from Damian Lillard. That was his 6th 40-plus point game in his career that he's dropped, or the Blazers have dropped a loss in.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So, wow.
5
That's the 6th time. That's the 6th time that he's scored 40 or more, and the Blazers lost the game.
Yep, and 5 of those 6 have been on the road.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on and talk about the Damian Lillard 41 points against Orlando. So that's a funner ending. That was a spectacular game from him. That was a nice game all around. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we've talked about, like, it's been talked about all over town because of the heckler, who, by the way, I heard also, and he was super annoying, and I had no idea while it was going on until like the end of the game that Damian had been listening to that guy, because like you could totally hear him through the broadcast. Yeah,
dude was, I mean, I guess you pay that kind of money as long as you're not crossing the line, say whatever you want. But he said that, all he said was brick, and it was just simple trash talk. Simple trash talk isn't going to just catch Damian Lillard's ear.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get his attention. And I heard some of the other video comment that came out of Reddit and stuff like that. And like, dude was being a little ignorant, but nothing like that was toxic, I think.
Yeah.
But Damian Lillard, I
took exception to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the dude makes 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists look simple now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's obscene what he's doing. Like, every time.
The morning after, he was, for one day, he was the highest scorer in the league.
Yeah, he's second right now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. That was after last night's game.
Shame on him.
After the Miami game.
Yeah, shame on Damian Lillard. How dare he not lead the league in scoring?
Yeah, now he's back to number 2.
It would be really nice to have Dame and CJ, though, both performing well to start the season. Like, we haven't, I don't think in the entirety of those two playing together where they've had, like, both of them had a great start to the season.
Yeah, they just both came out firing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we shall see if they come out firing soon. So after the Orlando game, they lost in Miami, and that was a drubbing, and that was a game we watched with the Women's Hoops and Talks group. And the best comment that that we had all night was somebody who said, "Well, CJ is certainly going to have to work hard to get to that 50, 40, 90 year. Now, he's got a long way to go."
He's got the 40 down.
I was like, that is so true.
50, I mean, he's had a 5 for 25 night and a 7 for 20 night so far. So
yeah. Okay, but my question about the game against Miami is that game looked different in terms of the rotations. It was like Stotts spent a lot of the second half with Collins and Leonard, and we're going to talk about Collins at least in a little while. But those guys were making it happen, and they made the comeback happen. But for the first half, it just felt like last year. It just felt like nothing was falling for any of the shooters. Dame and CJ were holding on to the ball because they weren't sure if they could get it. Bless his heart, Aminu is having a really hard time getting the ball to go in the basket. He's playing defense like nobody's business, but he can't get anything to fall. So what did you see anything extra concerning in that Miami game, like that you think was worse than the Washington loss, or what are your thoughts on that game in Miami?
So the Miami game, I'm just willing to just burn.
Mm-hmm. You're thinking it was Miami nightlife is undefeated, and
yeah, that's exactly it. They had a day off in Miami, first road trip early in the season. Evan Turner's birthday. That night off.
Oh, I forgot about Evan Turner's birthday.
Yeah, Evan Turner's birthday in Miami on a Friday night. I mean, they came out so sluggish,
and that would make sense why Zach Collins played well because he's only 20.
And even then, he didn't play great. He played okay. Nobody really played great save Damian Lillard. Seth Curry was on the floor for 20 minutes and took 2 shots. Stouts, he had that one ridiculous drive and finish. But he only got 4 shots up in 13 minutes. Aminu got 2 shots up in 21 minutes. So first bad night, but it was nobody save Damian Lillard really had a good night. That's not true. Jake Layman played well in his few minutes he was out there. Everybody else, for the most part, had a rough go of it.
But you think that was not something that's not like an indictment on their play or on the playbook or the scheme or like anything like they particularly tried that was different that failed. It was just a rough going.
Yeah, Nurkic probably bore the brunt of that. Nurk looked bad. Just first 2 shots up against Whiteside were soft, weak, throwback Nurkic. Whiteside sent his stuff out, and then he took that 3. And I have no problem with him taking 3s. I am still on board. It looks good when he lets it go. Let him get a 3 or 2 up a game. Perfectly fine with that. But it was a horrible looking attempt. And then Whiteside kind of started feeling himself on the defensive end. He wasn't really that impactful offensively, but defensively he controlled the paint. And then guys, instead of going at his chest, avoided him like the plague. There were so many times where guys turned the corner and saw Whiteside, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to settle for this contested mid-range jumper instead of like going at the shot blocker and trying to get him in foul trouble. And I was just like, come on, man. But Nurk started it all.
Well, so the way that Whiteside does it, how is that different or similar to the way that Yusuf Nurkic guards the rim?
They both guard it kind of the same. Whiteside's just more athletic and more explosive, so he can get more shots and block more shots and recover a little bit quicker. Nurk takes up a little bit more space and probably makes you work a little bit more in the post, but Whiteside offensively was 2 of 8 and took those 2 just absolutely atrocious 3s where it looked like somebody hit Paul halfway through his jumper. Like I was talking to the guys afterwards. I'm like, he did the first 3 he took. I was like, I have never seen somebody get disinterested halfway through a jumper.
Just in the middle of it, I'm done.
like everything looks good, and then he gets to like where he's gonna get to the release point, and it's like I don't care anymore. Like that's the best way that I can describe his jumper. And I was just like, okay, he's gonna take those. We can live with those. But man, it was just yeah.
Somebody on that team had a really horrendous looking free throw too. It was, I can't remember. It was like right at the end of the game where somebody on the other team shot a free throw that was just the weirdest looking thing. We were all like, did you see that? That was the strangest looking thing.
Well, Winslow's got a funky release. He's not a great shooter. You got Dwyane Wade out there going.
I think this was Magruder. Yeah.
Right.
Oh God, Dwyane Wade had a really nice night.
Yeah, 18 in the first half, 1 in the second.
Yeah.
He just took over in the first half and had his like revival moment. And of course, it's a throwback game against CJ McCollum, and CJ has said that's his toughest matchup year to year. And really, like CJ has not had an easy go of it on the defensive end. Like if you think about the guys, with the exception of like Evan Fournier, the guys he's had to go against have length and want to play defense.
Right. So he's drawn some tough assignments at the beginning of the year is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean,
so he's got to work hard on doing that.
Yeah. You look at the
that's tiring him out a little bit.
You've got Rondo, you've got KCP, Josh Hart's not really the defender, but you've got some guys who want to work defensively. You've got DeMar DeRozan, who has eaten CJ up in the past and did so for the Spurs. That was the only bright spot for the Spurs. Bradley Beal's another guy just kind of, made it rough on him. goes to Miami, and he's got Goran Dragic, he's got Dwyane Wade, he's got Josh Richardson, he's got Justice Winslow. Even Tyler Johnson will make you work. The only thing that didn't hinder the Blazers against the Heat that could have gone their way was Wayne Ellington. That was because he didn't dress. Mm-hmm. I mean, you remember the game last year where Ellington went nuts. Blazers ultimately came back and won that game, but yeah, it was bad until Damian Lillard saved them.
I still think that every game there's just going to be one player that's going to go off because they decide this guy, if anyone's going to beat it, it's going to have to be this guy. It's going to have to be through this guy. Like there's always one person who just like gets a career high or whatever against the Blazers. And I think it's because their scheme is like, okay, nobody else is going to beat us. If he wants to shoot all night long, he has to beat us all by himself. We will prevent anybody else from doing anything while Bradley Beal can get his 51 points or whatever. I just think that's because it just happens so often. I just have convinced myself that it's part of the plan.
And the thing was like Dwyane Wade, Evan Turner played him really well, and he's hitting contested fadeaway threes.
Mm-hmm.
He hit
the buzzer.
He had that one. He had one in each corner. He had one where he was catching from left to right, fading into the right corner, and then he had the one at the buzzer after he had stepped into one to kind of get everything going. Then he had the post possession on Stauskas where he hit him with a Smitty and then went up and under, and that was just beautiful footwork. But his first bucket, I believe, was against Evan Turner where he worked Turner down low. And Evan's not an easy guy to move, but his footwork, his strength, his ability to get to his spots, he hit him with a move, a counter move, and then he bumped Evan once and went to a turn and fade, and it was just textbook footwork. And he hit that shot, and I was like, yeah, that's vintage D Wade. There's not much you can do about it, and you can't play better defense than that. Mm-hmm. Just one of those nights where a Hall of Fame player did Hall of Fame things. Like that, of all the things of that night, that bothered me the least. What bothered me the most, and I get the Miami nightlife, and this is kind of why I'm burning the game tape, was the complete and utter lack of effort by anyone to grab a damn rebound. Mm-hmm. Meyers Leonard and Yusuf Nurkic. Nurkic had a bad night. There was one thing that both those big guys did that nobody else in that damn team did that night, and that was box somebody out. Because I'm just sitting there watching guys just stand there and watch offensive rebounds come down. The Blazers got beat 16-8 on the offensive glass. They came in as the best rebounding team in the league, and they lost 56-42. Like, that's inexcusable. That's nothing but effort.
Okay, I feel like you're getting pretty riled up about this.
Out of me because that's something that Aminu has been spectacular at this season. I mean, he was leading the Blazers coming into the game. He's the best rebounder on the team. He's been phenomenal. The bench unit had done a really good job rebounding as a unit. Like, guys had come in and helped each other out. I did not see anybody helping each other out at all that night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely did not feel like a unit like they have been earlier in this season. And so at the end of the game, when Collins and Leonard were in there together, mm-hmm. I felt really confident. I thought what Leonard was doing was exactly what he needed to be doing. He was doing what we always say. He was setting screens. He was boxing out. He didn't shoot great, but he did make at least 1 3, and he's enough so that people have to at least pay a little bit of attention to him. Yep. And then so I tweeted out something about how everyone should stop the Meyers Leonard slander, and people thought that I was all wrong, and I was completely delusional about that. Oh. And maybe he didn't score a lot of points, but like there have been other games where the Blazers were struggling. I think that Wizards game where it was just like, put in Meyers, like just change things up a little bit. Like he's, if they're in a rut, just like put some new blood in there. Why? Give it a try. We know why Dame was able to get absolutely just scorching hot because Meyers was getting everybody out of the way. He screened, I think it was Richardson, so hard that Richardson's knees buckled and he went to the ground. I mean, he was just obliterating guys. Mm-hmm. When Dame scored in I think it was 6 straight possessions, every single play, it was just like the Wizards and game with Morris and Wall, where they just ran the same side pick and roll over and over again, and then they deviated a little bit and went to a dribble handoff.
but it was Meyers obliterating somebody with a screen, and then Dame getting downhill on the left-hand side of the paint at Hassan Whiteside, who's 15 feet away from the rim. And it just worked over and over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, imagine that. You get a guy out there who's a floor spacer, who's a plus passer, who is the best screen setter on the team, and you're getting your best shooter or best player and scorer in space with a head of steam. Yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah, I just was surprised that Stotts hadn't really used it in the regular season much at all. Like I was just surprised. But so with Leonard and Collins coming off the bench, that leads to one of my questions is from week 1 to week 2, are we still feeling confident about the bench?
Yeah, I still am. Just because they had a subpar night, I'm not really worried about it. Like, their bad night was still 36 points off the bench. This team would have killed for that.
Oh man, that would have been like 12 points last year.
Yeah, I mean, a bad bench night, and a part of that is that teams are scoring more, so it's more of a percentage adjustment. So even if you adjust it, it's like a 20-point game from the bench last year, which still is subpar. The bench is playing more. Dame and CJ are, with the exception of that game, are playing less, and the bench is going out there and more often than not building a lead, and at the worst case scenario, holding a lead. Like, there's very, very few stints where they give a real lead up. Mm-hmm. That right there, I think, is something that they can kind of hang their hat on here early in the season.
So one thing that's surprising about the bench, to me anyway, is that with the exception of last night, it's really been Zach Collins is just the straight up center off the bench. And one of the things that you said a lot last year was that Zach Collins is 2 years away from 2 years away. Mm-hmm. So we're a year in. Is he 1 year away from 2 years away now? Or is he 2 years away from 1 year away? Or do you feel like he has made more progress than that?
He's made more progress than that. Mm-hmm. And I think we started talking about that really in like January, February last year, where it was like, okay, he can play some weak side shot blocks. He can rotate over. He can move his feet. I didn't expect the offensive output that I've seen from him so far this season. He's had a couple of really, really, really nice moments. The post up against Mo Bamba stands out significantly. The guy can't back up a point guard, but you put him against one of the longest players in the entire NBA, who's stupidly athletic and has some of the best shot blocking instincts in the past 10 years. And he wants to go head to head with him and bang him and push him off the spot, turn and fade over the shoulder. And I was like, okay, that was nice.
I've been watching for him and his ability to move people off of their spots, because you were always talking about that. And I noticed two this past week. One, and I can't remember, I think it was in the Orlando game where he moved. I can't remember who moved out of the way, but he totally moved somebody out of the way to allow Turner to get to the rim, which was cool. And then against Miami, he totally pushed Jeff Green out of the way, too. So I was like, okay, he's at least 2 for 2, being able to push people out of the way.
He's trying, and I like that.
I like his attitude. I like at the end of the Miami game when they interviewed him, he said, Meyers is probably going to get all the blame for this, but it was really me who let Whiteside get through to get to Meyers. I should have kept him out of there. And I was like, wow, that is really observant. And I like that attitude where he's total responsibility for it, whether or not it was also, I'm sure, Meyers certainly had responsibility in that as well. But I really liked Collins' attitude about that.
Yeah, and really the play where Whiteside took it away from Meyers, like, it happens. Whiteside is a rebounding monster. Mm-hmm. And I don't think when Meyers secured the ball, I don't think he realized that Whiteside was right over his shoulder because he had boxed somebody else out. That play doesn't really bother me in the grand scheme of things. That's not me excusing Meyers. That's just, that kind of stuff happens when you have a guy like Whiteside who just gobbles up rebounds and is right around there all the time. The plays that bothered me down the stretch, and this isn't just the poop on Collins here, but... Oh,
but you walked right into it, so go ahead. I was going to read off a bunch of statistics about how well he's doing, but if you'd like to go ahead and do, your litany first.
No. I think, like I said, I think he's done some spectacular things offensively. He's impacted the box score in a way that I did not think possible this year. Offensively, he's looked better shooting. When he's
averaging 10.8 points a game.
Yeah, when he has his feet set, good. He that's something he's clearly worked on, because when his base isn't there, it's still just a bag of cats. But when his base is there, it looks nice, and that's easily the biggest offensive change that I've seen in him. And I like that they're trying to get him the ball in those positions where, he's had a couple shots on the outside the paint, baseline extended 10, 12 feet, where he's looked really, really, really comfortable shooting the ball. But no, the instance in that Miami game that bothered me the most was, it's like 3 straight plays where Collins got fooled by, of all people, Kelly Olynyk. Like, that was like, you're supposed to be the defensive kid. Come on, do not bite on Kelly Olynyk pump fakes. Like, yeah. You are way, way, way too athletic to jump up in the air and buy that. And it was like, God, that's the young kid in him.
I think falling for pump fakes is youth. I mean, come on, Dan.
No.
Zach Collins had a good week.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in that particular game. No, that was, to me, his Miami game was his worst performance on both ends. I think he made up for it and made his box score look a little bit better by getting to the free throw line and going 8 for 8. That was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just like a throwaway, like, oh, he had a terrible game. Oh, yeah, but he was 8 for 8. Like, can we stop and pause for a minute? He was 8 for 8 from the line. It's not like 2 for 2.
No, it was.
And that was during a comeback.
Yeah, and it's great because last year his ability from the line was not good. Like, so that to me that's a big time improvement. I was hoping to see the little bit of that improvement in use of Nurkic from the line too, but that hasn't really manifested itself. But Zach did some things in that game I thought they were really nice. Obviously, everybody's going to look at the free throw line and the back-to-back threes that him and Meyers hit. I think those were the standout plays. But I think he also gets some of the blame for when the Heat responded right away. I think Olynyk had 8 straight points, and they were all on Zach. Or there was the one rotation where Zach literally left Olynyk completely and didn't recover to the 3-point line. I think it was right after Dame hit a 3. And it just crushed the momentum. I was like, come on, young man.
Okay, well, he was not the only one who had plays that hurt the momentum.
No, look at.
I feel like you're just
going mom on.
Like, you can't just say something nice about him and then move on.
No, that wasn't it at all. I think that so far through this season, I think he has had 4 really good games. But I saw a lot of people like, Zach was great tonight against Miami. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one game that I'm like, no, he had some really, really, really.
Dan, it's totally subjective what you mean by great. I mean, if you want, no, he wasn't Rudy Gobert, okay?
No.
The kid is not even 21 years old. He's in the middle of a comeback and he hits 8 for 8 from the free throw line. That is a lot of pressure. That he needs to get credit for that. And just
I did. I said he's been great.
But it's always followed by a big but.
I think the same things about Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Like, I don't understand this need to not be critical of somebody just because he had a good night somewhere else. Like, that's not a thing. Like, let's go with Meyers. Meyers screened people incredibly effectively. He boxed out. He needs to knock down those shots that he took. Going 1 for 5 out there, if he goes 2 for 4, 3 for 4 from 3 on what were wide open shots, the only one was contested, I think, by, was it Dragic? Because they ended up getting 2 points out of it immediately after he missed because he just kept running by him. Meyers tried to recover, but he knocks down that shot. It's a 5-point swing. So I get the idea that Zach has been good, and I'm giving him credit. Like, I legitimately think Zach is playing way better, especially in the offensive end, than I ever expected. But I think some of that, not the offensive stuff, the defensive stuff that I think a lot of people were really hanging their hat on, I think that has been his biggest shortcoming this year. Not that it's been bad, but I think some of his biggest mistakes and his errors have been on the defensive side, where in the past, that's where he was always shining, and his errors were almost always offensively. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting change.
Okay, I just see a lot of more airtime devoted to all the things that you think that ways that he's falling short. And I wanted to point out the fact that he is, like you were saying, actually impacting the box score. And you were saying that would be success. Mm-hmm. He is scoring 10.8 points, 5.2 rebounds. His shooting, 69.2%. Yeah, he really is. From 3 on 1.8 attempts per game, he's 55.6. Obviously, that is going to, probably regress. But he's making these shots that he wasn't making last year. And it's a lot of progress. And, you were just so sure last year that he was 2 years away from 2 years away. And I think we've seen more progress. And like I said, he doesn't need to be alongside. Last night was kind of the exception where he went in with another big man for extended minutes. But otherwise, he's playing fine.
Well, here's the thing. With how that's played out with him at the 5 versus him at the 4, Harkless is out today, whenever you're listening against the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see Meyers now because Harkless has been playing a lot of 4. So I think Zach probably slides back down to the 4, and Meyers probably, I think, did enough at least for Stotts to be like, all right, well, I got to give Meyers at least 10, 12 minutes. So we could see more of what we saw against Miami where Zach's a little bit more
of the 4.
Yeah, a little bit more
okay.
Playing a little bit out on the perimeter and being more of the weak side guy, a little further away from the rim, as opposed to being the quasi rim protector / weak side guy, help defender that he's been playing with the second unit.
Well, let's move into the upcoming games. So Monday, like you said, against Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana is 4-2. Let's see. Tyreke Evans will be back after serving the 1-game suspension for missing practice or being late to practice. Did you read his apology? That was the greatest apology, and people who ever have to make an apology should refer to his apology. It reads like this. I was late for practice. This is the most professional and team-oriented organization I have been with in my career. They deserve my best every day, and I am disappointed in myself for causing a distraction that prevents me from being able to help my team tomorrow. I will do better. He absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Remind me again, who's the coach for the...
Nate McMillan.
Who's the GM?
Is it Kevin Pritchard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that this organizational structure that he's referencing is somewhat familiar to what we had in Portland, where you do not show up late to practice. So that's not surprising at all.
But it was just a perfectly written apology in terms of he took full responsibility for it. He did not lay it on them to be like, oh, I'm sorry you guys were put out because I was gone. It was like, no, I was gone. I was wrong. I'm not going to do it again. That is how you make an apology. That's
the Pacers. That's Larry Bird building this organization and laying a foundational structure, much like what the Portland Trailblazers have done for the last almost decade now, in that there's an understanding of how things are supposed to be done. And I love that Tyreke recognizes that because he's been in crappy team situations. Like that man has played for some really, really, really bad organizations. Mm-hmm. Shout out Kings. So I think when you, as a veteran player, when you get to an organization where you're like, okay, this is how things are supposed to be done, when all of a sudden that dawns on you and hits you, and you're like, yeah, no, that's awesome. I know it's a really, really simple thing, but it's great because it's manifesting itself for the Pacers. Granted, they're 4-2. They probably should be 5-1. They're second in the league in field goal percentage. They're first in 3-point percentage.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's interesting. They're first in 3-point percentage, but they're second to last in attempts.
Mm-hmm.
They're not attempting that many, but they're just really accurate. So they're getting really good looks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they're hitting 10 threes a game.
So how are the Blazers going to attempt to play them?
Well, that's the thing is that we talked about how it's been rough for CJ. Guess what? It doesn't get any easier. He's got Oladipo, who is going to hound the living hell out of him every minute he's on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah, how to defend the Pacers is kind of funny because here, let me pull this back up. I had to switch tabs there. It'll
all be Jake Layman will have to score because they won't have a plan for him.
And you know what? Shout out Jake, because Jake has just kind of done his Noah Vonleh thing.
Mm-hmm.
He plays 10 to 12 minutes, knocks down a 3, finishes in transition, plays passable defense, like
works hard, energetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a guy out there who, like Noah Vonleh, is just a guy who likes to play basketball.
Yeah,
Like he just has that whole vibe of like, I'm a guy who I'm here, I'm playing.
yeah, and he's not disappearing. He's not forcing anything. I haven't seen him really pass up on anything or make a huge mistake. And I think that's what you really want from your fifth guy out of your starting lineup right now with the way Portland's roster is structured. But if you look at Indiana, their leading scorer is Oladipo. That's not a surprise. But he's only averaging 22 a game.
Oh, so they have pretty balanced scoring throughout, huh?
You've got Bogdanovich with 15. You've got Sabonis with 13. Turner with 13. Tyreke with 12. Thad with 10. McDermott with 9. Corey Joseph with 9. Collison with 8. Like, if you throw
a lot of weapons.
Yeah, if you throw McDermott, Joseph, and Collison each a point more a game, they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 guys basically averaging double figures. That's nuts. That's so damn difficult to deal with.
So how do they do it?
I mean,
did they just outscore them?
That's the way you do it. Anything in the NBA right now. Let's touch on that particular because I've had to bring this point up what feels like a dozen times already just over the last week about scoring in the NBA, and people they just don't play defense anymore. No, they play defense, folks. Their pace is at an all-time high. 3-point attempts are at an all-time high. Free throw rate is at an all-time high. More possessions, more efficient shots. Shots with the clock stop turns into more points. That's flat out what's going on. We talked about it in the podcast last week how more threes lead to longer rebounds lead to runouts. Runouts lead to 3-on-4s, 3-on-2s, 4-on-2s, so on and so forth. So that gives you all of your umbrella coverage for why teams are scoring more. It becomes more about being better situationally. That means stopping points in transition, limiting turnovers and transition opportunities off of turnovers, because those are the real killers, not fouling and taking away high efficiency shots at the rim, corner threes. Everything else you live with, and that's everybody's game plan. The teams that are better at it have more guys that are 6'6" to 6'10" and more switchable because they can be more impactful. Think of how, Boston's kind of a dumpster fire right now, but Milwaukee, Philly.
Well, I want to actually move on to Houston because they're another switchy team, or they were a switchy team.
They were until they got rid of everybody that plays defense.
Right. And they're really struggling, and that's who the Blazers will be playing next after they play Indiana. Did you want to finish up anything on Indiana?
Yeah, with Indiana, it's just you have to play a team game. It's a Nate McMillan coach team. They're not going to do anything that's going to blow your socks off. They're going to have some nice wrinkles, but the team they've assembled, okay, from all those guys that I named, Oladipo, Bogdanovich, Sabonis, Turner, Tyreke, Thad, McDermott, Joseph, Collison. Who of those guys is the one that takes a play off?
I don't know. Is this a rhetorical question? You tell me.
No, it's a real question. It's a bunch of guys that work. Sabonis has made a living now of being like a 13-8 guy who works his butt off. Miles Turner, people in Indiana are still hoping he figures it out, but he's another one of those guys. Tyreke has really turned around over the last couple of years, added the ability to knock down a three and play defense. Oladipo's one of the best two-way players in the entire league, probably right in line to take the mantle away from Kyle Lowry as the best two-way guard in the league. So yeah, it's just going to be a tough night.
Okay, so going from that into Houston, they are having a rough go of it right now, but this is the game I'm worried about more than any of them, because they're going to have 2 full days of practice, and they're going to be coming out with a ton to prove because they got to be mad about the stop that they have so far. They're not going to have Harden. Chris Paul's back from his suspension. They got a few guys that are day to day, but I'm just super worried about this because it's just odds are things have been going so badly for them and they must be so mad. Plus they're going to have a couple of days of practice under their belt. I think they could just come out and come out with a fury, let's just say.
Well, with no Harden, they're losing 30 points a game. So expect Chris Paul to pick up some of that slack and Carmelo getting more shots up, which is going to be cute. He's been bad. He had a kind of a bounce back game, but
he's been scoring though.
Yeah,
and that's what they need. They clearly don't care about defense anymore because they got rid of Ariza and Mumba Amute. So like you said, they don't have the defense that they had last year.
PJ Tucker and Chris Paul are the only guys willing to play defense consistently on that team. Michael Carter-Williams, James Ennis, to an extent, I guess, and he'll probably get some more run with Harden out.
So do you think that they're going to spend 2 days practicing, or like practicing defense, or
No.
are they just going to get their shots up? And I mean,
Mike D'Antoni practices are kind of known as pretty laid back practices. There are some coaches that really get after it during the season. Mike D'Antoni's teams are not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now that could change with how crappy they're playing.
Right, and they don't have their defensive coach anymore. Their defense guy left.
Yeah, no, he's gone. I mean,
to go to a different team.
I mean, wouldn't you? If you're a defensive coach and you're like, you just got rid of my two best defenders. What do? You gave me Carmelo. What am I supposed to do with this?
And also, I think they have the two guys in the league who least look like they're enjoying themselves ever. Chris Paul and Marquise Chris always look like they're so miserable. And maybe they're just lovely people and that's just how their faces are, but they always just look like they're just hate being there so much.
Hate face?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just that game screams trap game, and Lord knows if Portland drops this game in Indiana, oh my God, if they go 1-3 on this freaking trip, yeah,
then all of your hope that was a week ago is completely gone.
It's snuffed out, just gone. Because dropping the game in Miami, like I'm willing to okay, Miami nightlife, first road trip early in the season. Get a day off in Miami. Those things happen. Miami, LA, if you get a Friday night off, like literally, if you ever want to see something hilarious, just go check the results on those. There's a calendar site that you can find that you can see that. The winning percentage for the home team for Miami or Lakers or Clippers is like 72%. It's absurd. It's like, yeah, night off down there.
Well, I'm sure all our guys were in their hotel playing cards at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so it is kind of what it is. That's the nature of the beast.
Okay, but we don't want them to lose both Indiana and then, God forbid, turn around and lose to Houston.
Yeah, and if they're going to lose a game, lose the one to the Pacers, because I can't stand hearing this crap from Rocket fans or, hey, this is the game that got the Rockets going. No, I want them to win both, but for the love of God, do not drop a game to the Rockets sans James Harden, because then the narrative of, hey, here are the Blazers again dropping games against teams who they have no business dropping games against when, the premier scoring option is gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the game that I'm most concerned about is the final one against the Pelicans, or is the next one against the
TV game on the first.
Right. And that's like, how do you think the Blazers are going to go in against the team that swept them in the playoffs?
Well, is AD playing? Because right now he's got an elbow sprain.
He's game time decision is the last I saw.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it hinges on. Because you don't have Rondo at the point of attack anymore. You still have Drew, but
and Peyton has had an ankle injury as well. They've got some guys who are nursing some sore stuff. But okay, every time anybody in the NBA right now is out with soreness, I'm like, that's it. That's the Jimmy Butler trade. It's going down. Every single time.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick.
I mean, I was like, Mo Harkless in the middle of the game had knee soreness, and I was like, oh my God, the Jimmy Butler trade is happening.
Speaking of Houston and the Jimmy Butler trade.
Oh God.
4 first-round picks. Okay, folks, the step-in rule. That means it's every year. That basically puts the Rockets out of like tangible picks for
a decade.
Like I don't think people fully comprehend. This isn't quite the Nets, like what they gave up for Garnett and Pierce. But this is the kind of thing where if it didn't work, it would be disastrous. Like, the protection. No, there's no protections on those picks except for maybe the back end. And if you're Minnesota, you tell them no.
Well, it's not going to. How are they going to pay him? I mean, it's not going to work.
No, they'll find a way to do it by moving the money necessary, and then Carmelo obviously comes off because he's got a massive cap hold. But it's just, I think it's a terrible idea, but I'm all for it. I mean, I love what Daryl Morey has done when he's seen an opportunity where he's really been interested. This could be just.
I thought Carmelo was on a veteran's minimum.
He is, but he's still got a massive cap hold.
Oh, he carried the cap hold with him from Atlanta?
Yeah, so when he goes to free agency, when he has a cap hold on him, he'll have a big one. They'll just wave it away.
Okay.
But like I said, they'll find a way to make it work if that's really what they want to do. They'll restructure one of the deals or something. I mean, Chris Paul wants his banana boat. He's going to have to give up some money. But back to the Pelicans, AD has been an absolute monster. But the guy who's really been fantastic offensively, Mirotic. I mean, he cooled down a little bit, but he's shooting like 54, 46, something like that. Just absurd. He had the first 3 games of the season, I think he was averaging like 33 or 34 a game. Defensively, he's still a turnstile, but I don't think you really care when you have Anthony Davis.
When you can put up 149 points.
Yeah, and the other one, the big addition for them has been Julius Randle. Julius Randle's playing 20 minutes a night and getting like 16 and 10. Like, that's the most effective production I think I've ever seen from a dude in 20 minutes a night.
Okay, but so, you know, the way that they won against Portland was that they continually sent 2 or 3 people after Damian Lillard. Mm-hmm. How does Portland adjust to that?
Well, if AD's out, it's a whole hell of a lot easier because both Lillard and McCollum can beat that press, and I don't think New Orleans does that without AD back there. Okay. Like, it's very, very, very difficult to do that if the big back there is Mirotic
is not Anthony Davis.
Sheikh Diallo out there playing defense, Ja Okafor out there playing defense. Not really scaring me all that much.
But let's say that they have a full roster.
Full roster? Well, pray that Jake Layman can break open a defense.
Well, I mean, how does anybody... I mean, God, are they still undefeated or did they finally lose? They finally lost.
If they are, I think they're 4-1. But I mean, they're leading the league in points. They're 9th in rebounds. They're 2nd in assists. I mean, they're just...
Yeah, they're super good.
They look really, really good. Now, they're not deep.
We can't just be like, oh, there's no way to beat them. I mean, there's got to be a way to beat them.
I don't think they're going to blitz the way they did because they don't have the same personnel on the perimeter to really make that effective. Now, Drew's going to do his thing. Elfrid Payton, he's got length, and he, in the past, hilariously enough, when him and Oladipo were together in Orlando, they were a nightmare-fueled matchup for Dame and CJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was when Portland used to lose in Orlando, wasn't it?
Because those two guys would just take turns just wearing those two guys out. Mm-hmm. So that potential is still there, but I think Dame is elevated to a level I think the Blazers have learned. That they've got some new wrinkles. I think going to a 5-out lineup with Meyers, with Zach, I think that helps.
What do you mean 5 out?
So 5 guys outside the paint.
Oh, okay.
You're spacing the floor, opening lanes up. I mean, you saw what they did against Miami with the high pick and roll with Meyers and Dame.
Uh-huh.
Now, if it's Alvin Gentry and he's an evil genius when it comes to Portland, he always finds like one thing and he just picks at it until you just can't stand it anymore. Right now, it's blitzing the pick and roll. In the past, it was double teaming LaMarcus Aldridge. He'll always have some wrinkle, but in the regular season, you're not going to see, I don't think, that kind of commitment to that particular thing, but I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if it isn't featured pretty strongly.
How about their bench?
Their Blazers bench, or
no? There are the Pelicans bench versus the Blazers bench.
I'm not worried about that. I think the Blazers bench. I think that's where the Blazers could make some hay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Evan Turner, who, with the exception of the Miami game, has been really good.
I'm loving him running that second unit.
Yeah.
And like we talked about last week and like you wrote about, having Mo in that second unit when he's healthy, I think it's a good fit.
Plays.
Although he's still, I don't know, I have not noticed Mo much the last couple of games. I know that he went out early in the Miami game, but
here's my hot take on Mo right now. Shut him down until there's no more knee discomfort, no more knee pain. I don't care. This cannot go on all season. It can't. Mm-hmm. If it goes on all season, it's going to become a chronic issue.
Yeah.
Both him,
and then it's just going to be just a thing that's hovering over everybody. And like, is Mo with us tonight? I don't know. And we talked about this last year, I think, when I can't remember who it was out, but where like you didn't know from game to game if somebody was going to be there. Maybe it was Harkless back then too.
Yeah, no, he needs to get this sorted out. That's bottom line. And what that does to the Blazers' depth at the wing position is terrifying. That probably means.
Okay, wait. Is it terrifying? Is it concerning? Is it like, oh, things aren't as bad as we thought they were going to be? Because
don't have any guys that they can readily place in there, so it's going to change what they do with rotations. It probably.
Well, I mean, he already really hasn't been there that much, and so Jake starts.
But minutes wise, he's getting 22 a night. Like that's not like an easy thing to replace.
Yeah.
The whole idea of like, oh, we could just plug in Gary Trent Jr. and slide Evan Turner up to the 4, and I'm like, what?
What would you do?
I would go with what Stock did last night against Miami. I played Zach at the 4 and I played Miami at the 5. I dressed Gary Trent Jr. And if there comes a period where it makes sense to downsize, give him a chance. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking if the game's kind of in control. That way, I think there's a little bit of a good, warm, fuzzy feeling in your stomach if it goes well. And if it doesn't, you go, rookie. And you go back to, what you had in the books.
Mm-hmm. Okay, back to finish up on New Orleans. Any other thoughts that you have about how Portland could come out with a win on that game? So if the Blazers bench outperforms New Orleans, if Anthony Davis isn't there, but I don't think we can really count that.
The other thing is just guys, Dame in particular, knowing when and where to pick his spots, not forcing it. And Dame said this after that series, like he wanted to do so much because of the way that they were covering him.
Yeah,
that it backfired. Mm-hmm. And knowing like he can't take himself out of the game, that can't happen. But in the first 3 games of the season, when the Blazers started out really, really well, one thing I noticed, or the first 4 games, to say, Dame made a concerted effort early on in games to get other guys involved. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a huge, huge step forward and kind of set the table for him to take over later in the game.
Well, and on both with the starters and the bench, I've noticed this year, if guys got the ball and they weren't in a good position for the shot, they right away gave it back instead of standing there hesitating and pump faking and, trying to figure out what, like, so we could sit there and like watch the whole decision go on in their heads. They were just like, nope, not this one yet. And then they just keep working. I guess that's the flow until someone can't. But I feel like they have that down a little bit better this year, both on the starters and on the bench. Like on the bench, like if Evan Turner gives somebody the ball and they don't have a good shot, they just give it right back. And so that he can find the next one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect observation. That's something that stands out so far this season. The ball hasn't stuck that much. I think in the Washington game it did.
That might, help them a lot against New Orleans, actually, I think.
Yeah, you have to keep an active defense off. And honestly, I like what they've done offensively where they have attacked mismatches. There have been a lot of times when, particularly with the bench unit, when there is a switch on Evan Turner down low, Evan is going to take whoever's little ass down there. And even if he doesn't get the shot up, he's going to make somebody commit somewhere, whether it's a step down low from the weak side, above the 3-point line. If somebody comes in and helps, and digs in a little bit from the corner, somebody's going to move somewhere, or Evan's going to use his big butt and get to the rim.
Yeah.
I mean, his field goal percentage, with the exception of the Miami game, has been great. Like, he's been consistent. He's not forcing shots. He's getting to his spots. And with that, I would like to see I know I said I'd give him a month, but I'd like to see Seth Curry step more into that. And we saw that in the Orlando game where he came out and I think he had 11 points against Orlando, and he had like a burst where I think he had 8 points in like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, there we go. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I'd like to see him force the action a little bit more when Evan's doing the initiation. And I think that's part of why they brought in Stauskas and Curry, was for these kind of matchups when the floor is spaced.
Mm-hmm. E.T. hasn't taken a 3 all year.
I thought he took 1.
Oh, did he take 1?
I could have.
Maybe I looked at these last night before the.
I could have swore he took 1. Now you're.
They were posted. But he is shooting over 50% from the field, and then I was like, but he's no 3s, or maybe he was just like 0 for 1, and so he was there.
3, and I think one of them is a heave.
Oh, okay.
So I think he's got 2 3-point. The only downside I've seen to Evan Turner's production so far this year on raw totals is the dude hasn't got to the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 6 free throw attempts in 5 games.
Yeah, that's not much.
A little bit weird for a guy whose offensive production comes from at the rim.
I mean, he's more like out a little bit farther than right at the rim.
I mean, most of his plays are within, 10 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are definitely closer to the basket. Well, I have one more observation. It has nothing to do with any of the upcoming games, but I was wondering if you noticed it too. And I had this. So I feel like Aminu's handle has gotten a lot better. Is that just me? I mean, I'm still not saying it's like great and like any of the guys who have a great handle, but it seems much less chaotic than it has been.
I don't know necessarily. I haven't paid that close attention to him and as far as offense outside of his movement and the shots that he's taking. I'd say overall I've been pretty disappointed in his production. He's a knockdown shots. I haven't really seen him the circus party dribbles. That hasn't really happened.
No, when he drives, he's so much more under control than he has been in my opinion. He looks way more under control than he has in the last couple of years. And he had that beautiful under the basket, like up and under through 3 guys. I can't remember which. I wrote about it in my mom's favorite column for the week. But it was gorgeous, and it was right at the rim. But yeah, and he was getting, I was watching him get like all these rebounds, and he's starting to be the guy who like, when there's 2 Blazers, like he grabs the rebound, and I just had this realization of like, oh my God, he's in a contract year. Like this is Aminu playing for a contract. And I love him, but he's like pushing his own players out of the way to get the rebounds when there's 3 Blazers standing there after a free throw miss, and he's grabbing the rebound over 2 other Blazers. And I'm like, oh, Aminu's in a contract year.
That's like the one play that comes to mind with him and his handle. I mean, he was atrocious from the field otherwise that night. But when he put the ball on the floor and attacked JaVale McGee and dunked all over his soul.
Oh, yeah, that was nice, too.
That was the most controlled, direct, aggressive dribble move I may have ever seen from him. Like in traffic, like it was like, I'm going to go here now. I dare you to stop me. And we don't see those from him very often.
No, and we've seen more this year than we ever have.
Yeah, he looked more like Thad Young there than Al-Farouq Aminu. Now, I'm a firm believer that he'll round back into shape 3-point wise and end up at like a 37%. But God, it would be nice if he started knocking down shots on some of these slow nights.
Yeah, him and CJ.
I really hope he gets it together here really quick, because I'm at the point where it's just like I can't really figure out what's going on, because like I said when we kicked off the show, he's getting to his spots. So,
Well, we shall see what happens as the week develops. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I think this is going to be a pretty telling week. Like we've had a couple games early on. We're like, hey, all right, we had a couple games here. We're like, crap. Now we're like, okay, let's find out kind of what's in between. I think a couple things we can say right now. Damian Lillard is a first-team All-NBA caliber player.
Yeah, he's going for MVP, and he's going for being voted into the All-Star. And I think that he has a chance to get voted into the All-Star starters.
I disagree with you just because there is a city in Los Angeles that has a basketball team.
Who are the guards? They let 2 guys. So Lonzo Ball.
Honestly, I think Lonzo will get more votes than Damian Lillard, and that's just because of sheer massive people who follow.
Okay, and
that alone will keep him out.
Well, who's the other guard that's getting in?
You've got Chris Paul, you've got Russell Westbrook, you've got Steph Curry.
Do you think people are still going to vote? Oh, Steph. I forgot about him. Totally forgot about Steph for like an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
If they would change it so they could have a 3-guard lineup in the All-Star game, then Damian. But I'm not going to let go. I'm not going to let go because, you never know. Nothing is impossible.
Like, not even like the 40-plus point nights, just like damn near 35-5 every night. Like, yeah, that's going to get some notice. But it also is going to take Portland to be really successful for that Portland will have to be successful for that
to happen.
Yes.
Well, then he's just gonna have to settle for an MVP.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, Dame has been phenomenal. Like that gear that we talked about, like coming into the season, like likely.
We're like, there's no other gear. He went up an extra gear last year.
Yeah, no, he's found a gear.
He has a whole nother gear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's amazing, and we are so lucky that he is a trailblazer.
Yeah. Zach is impacting the box score in a way that I did not see coming this season. That's been huge.
Evan Turner is doing fantastic leading the bench.
Stauskas' ability to attack off the dribble. He's still a defensive liability, but he's another offensive weapon. I think that the Blazers will at least be able to count on to be a consistent threat. That's new off the bench. It's not Pat Connaughton. It's not Shabazz Napier. It's a guy who legitimately can create his own shot and be effective at all levels, like getting to the rim, finishing traffic, knocking down threes, coming off curls. It's been a while since the Blazers have had anybody just offensively off the bench who could do those things. So it's nice to be able to check those boxes. And I think he's for real. I don't think he's the 6th man of the year candidate, but I think he's somebody you can count on. And that's a big swing.
And I think this is my hot take. I think Meyers is better than he's ever been, and they just got to get him on the floor. I'm sure I'll get heat for that, but no, I really think he is.
No, I think that there's a world that exists where Meyers Leonard getting 10 to 12 minutes a night is a good thing for the Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just bring in a little energy, bring in a few extra fouls, and, bring in a guy who can give you something a little bit different, kind of throw off the rhythm for the other team. So the other team's like, whoa, I didn't think they were really going to do this. And so,
Meyers in what?
Just one more, you got to use everything that you're given.
And the last one is shut Mo down. Shut him down until he's 100%. I'm just done messing with this until he's like, yeah, no, I'm 100% healthy. I wake up every day after a game, normal basketball soreness, not my knee hurts. So,
well, let's hope that they have a good week and we can be back on our everything is so great.
Yeah, that was way more fun. I came in tonight like, what the hell?
Yeah, but it's fine. We have to remember, we can't get too high and we can't get too low, which is like really hard for you.
I live in the moment, damn it.
I know you live in the highs and in the lows. That is for sure. So I will try to do a better job of keeping you not too high or not too low.
Good luck.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm Tara Bowen Biggs, and you can follow me on Twitter at TCBBiggs. You can also follow the Hoops and Talks podcast. I have a Hoops and Talks episode coming out later this week. That's on Twitter at Hoops and Talks. Dan, go ahead, take us out.
All right, folks, you can find me on Twitter at DMarang, on Instagram, everywhere else for your social media needs, at DMarang, at DMARANG. You can find me on every Blazers pre- and post-game show on the Blazers Outsiders pre- and post-game show with Joe, Simon, Shane Brennan, and myself. An hour before tip-off, and as soon as Michael and Jordan get off the air post-game. In the meantime, check out the Women's Hoops and Talks podcast if you haven't already. Tara has great people on, and they get some really cool discussions going.
Oh, I got a good one coming on.
Who you got coming?
The founders of the Relish.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if people have heard of it, but it is it's a sports platform which is centered around women, and they have some new things that they are coming out with, and it was just super inspiring, and I was like, oh my gosh, these ladies are wonderful. So I'll be working on that and getting that up later on this week. Comes out every other Thursday.
Perfect. When's your guys' next what meeting?
Oh my gosh, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but we have one every month. And if you want to find out what all the dates for the Hoops and Talks meetups are, they are pinned to the top of my Twitter profile.
See, that's why I plug these things for you.
Thank you, Dan.
You're Blazers Edge version of Shane Brennan. You just don't plug yourself enough.
Okay, well, that's what we have you here because you like to talk. So you can just take it over.
Oh, that's a terrible idea. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Undo it all, then do it all over again. Break the system because Apple still hasn't figured it out. For Terrabo and Biggs, I'm Danny Marang. We'll catch you guys next week. See you.